Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Answers podcast with myself, Adele. And not only on the podcast today, but we are on all social network platforms, including YouTube, so you even get to see us in person. My guest psychic today, you can see her on the screen. We've got the lovely Claire Wallace. Hello, Claire.
Hello. Hello, everybody. How's everybody on this absolutely chucking it down with rain day?
It's cleansing the soul.
Yeah, absolutely, Adele. Cleansing the soul indeed,
Or
right?
washing the garden furniture.
Absolutely. Right, okay. Yeah,
I
Neville
mean, Claire,
Goddard.
Claire, before you
Yeah.
do get started, I mean, first of all, let's introduce you properly because for people are thinking, who is this lady? I mean, you've been doing this work now for over 20 years. You've been on numerous TV programs, radio shows with your psychic ability from being clairvoyant, your mediumship, working with different cards and tools. So this is not just happened overnight. You've been doing this work for a very long time.
I have indeed, yes. Probably too long, Adele, but that's another story, isn't it? Yes, but yes, I have been doing it quite a long time now. But yeah, I mean, evidently, yeah, it's just something that I just sort of kind of like got into, but and fell into, if you want to like sort of put it mildly and politely. But yeah, it's been quite a long time.
And what's life like being a psychic? I mean, is it different from anybody else's?
It can be, yeah. I mean, it is different, but it's not different. I mean, the thing is, I mean, psychics are just normal everyday people. It's just we have been given this gift. And I say to everybody, well, everybody is psychic. But the thing is, sometimes people say it's a gift. I often think it's sometimes a curse
Mm.
because evidently, with having this gift, it does come with challenges as well. And evidently, there's a lot of, I've had to face a lot of people who are skeptical at the moment. And,
Mm.
but evidently, over the years, I have learned how to deal with the skeptics. And evidently, I'm not out to prove anything, Adele. This is
Yeah.
what I do. And,
Is
you
it
know,
like with a lot of people? We can all run, but we're not necessarily going to be a top athlete. We can all draw, but not necessarily going to be the best artist in the world. It's like you can be psychic, but to actually do this professionally takes a lot of work and a lot of graft and a lot of practice.
Well, in all honesty, it's you see, I've always been like this since I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really took much notice of me gifts until I was older and I had more life experience because naturally, like everybody, I didn't want to be the last girl that was picked for the hockey team or, like sort of like the basketball team. I wanted to fit in with everybody, Adele.
Yeah.
So evidently I was just a normal girl, as you know, I was in the modelling world, like you've been in that world, and it can be quite superficial at times.
Mm-hmm.
And evidently, I got sucked into the lifestyle, the party lifestyle, the parties, the drinking, all. I was just a normal everyday girl.
Yeah.
And then what happened was I had a huge spiritual awakening in my 20s. And it was basically Archangel Michael. He said, well, you're going to be out there and you're going to be helping a lot of people. And at the time I thought I was just going absolutely, crazy with everything,
Mm.
And that is when I started developing my gifts. I started going to the spiritualist churches. I trained as a Reiki master, and it just snowballed from there. And evidently I have
Sorry to
added,
interrupt. What was
yeah.
that awakening? What was it why suddenly you had a spiritual awakening? What is that?
I just got totally sucked into the party lifestyle,
Yeah.
and you know yourself, that lifestyle, it's not, it's got its downside.
Yeah.
I was making quite a lot of money at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got carried away with it all. And evidently, Archangel Michael said, you know, you're going to be changing pathways and you're going to be helping a lot of people. And that is when evidently I started, you know, I left that industry and I started, because I was working as a dancer,
Mm-hmm.
as well as doing me modelling and things like that. And then I started developing my gifts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was basically a series of life experiences. It wasn't just that one moment.
Yeah.
It had been a series of life experiences and events that had led up to that awakening.
Yeah.
And I knew then that things had to change. They
Do you
did
think
have to change.
think that with a lot of people, I suppose we all have a story. We all have, experience that we all go through. Do you think sometimes when things get so hard and sometimes so traumatized, we're searching for answers and we're looking like, why is this happening to me? What's going to make me happy? We start questioning things that then that spiritual awakening, those doors sort of
Well,
open.
yeah.
Or
I
can you have
mean,
an absolutely amazing life and it still happens and you still get that sort of calling?
Absolutely, you know, but then again, none of us are on this earth plane to have it easy, are we? You know, even people who are, you know, I think I was talking to one lady last night who was, you know, a fellow psychic, and she did actually mention, do you know, Claire, she says, I am the only one out of all of my friends who was happily married. And all of the other friends that she has are
Mm-hmm.
also psychic as well. And they've also worked professionally psychically. And yet not one of them are happy in their relationships apart
Mm-hmm.
from her. You
Yeah.
know, it's so easy to be in a relationship and stay there if it's convenient, if you've got a
Yeah.
great lifestyle. But the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is, yeah, what
At
spirituality
what cost?
teaches us, you know, is that you know, materialism and what is on the outside is meaningless, because we come into this life for absolutely nothing, and
Yeah.
we're going to exit this life exactly
Exactly.
the same, you
Yeah.
know,
You
and
get so
that.
fixated on wanting things all the time rather than just living in that present. I mean, a lot of it is not just about psychic readings that you do, and we're going to go into who you want to talk about today. But a lot of it is about personal development, personal growth. You are a psychic counselor. Is a psychic counselor different to a everyday average counselor? Well, not average, but an everyday counselor. Is there a difference with a psychic counselor?
Well, I mean, I have done counselling, like obviously I went down the mainstream route of counselling,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, many years ago, you know, I went to college, did me level 2, level 3, and I just thought to myself, do you know what, right? There's something missing. There's something with this that I'm not hitting. I'm missing something.
Mm-hmm.
And then evidently once my psychic gifts like sort of kicked in, I realised then, you know, that mainstream counselling and psych and, you know, that good old fashioned intuitive gut instinct could like sort of kick in as well.
Yeah.
So evidently I've now got mainstream counselling and
Mm-hmm.
also with it me psychic counselling. So basically I can counsel somebody but also use like me spiritual and psychic gifts in order to help them, you
Yeah.
know, because sometimes I think a lot of mainstream counsellors, and you know, I'm not for 1 minute am I knocking the counselling profession at all,
Mm-hmm.
because you know the counselling training that you do get is fantastic, but sometimes it does, you know, even though you can look at the psychology of people, sometimes it's like, well, where's that good old fashioned instinct there, you know, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to help this person to move forward,
Yeah.
you know, because you can sit and you can talk, and yeah, it can be very therapeutic,
Mm.
but you know, sometimes you just need somebody to say, well, you know, how can this person, how can I help this person to move forward,
Yeah.
you know, how can I you know, even though we're not there to advise, we're just there
Mm.
as a guide, but how can we signpost them so they can make the right decisions in order for them to move forward, you know,
And I
so
imagine it's a
everything.
bit like having that connection as well, isn't it? Sometimes when you go to a professional in a certain industry, it can be quite formal. Whereas I imagine when you're speaking to a psychic and they're tapping into your energy, into your emotion, and they get you and they understand you, it makes that nice strong bond for that person to feel more reassured by
Yeah,
what you're
well, it
saying.
is. It's a lot more individual because,
Yeah.
you know, people can go for counselling and they can find it extremely therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a counsellor is not there to judge. they're there to just like simply help you to find within yourself
Yeah.
how
You're
to move forward. But the
yeah.
thing is, sometimes you can study all of the everything to do with psychology and psychotherapy, but evidently sometimes you've just got to use that good old-fashioned gut instinct. So
Mhm.
this is where good old-fashioned gut instinct comes in with me as well,
Yeah.
as well as me other gifts as well. So
Nice.
evidently I'm finding that the mainstream counselling and with the psychic counselling, because a lot of mainstream counsellors now are actually training to be psychic counsellors as
Mhm.
well, so evidently they have got that good old-fashioned good instinct, alongside
Yeah.
the mainstream counselling training that they've
Definitely.
had, and the
Definitely.
psychology training, which is it is always good.
So you said today that you would really like to talk about a certain person. Who is that certain person? Reveal.
Oh, it's got to be good old-fashioned Neville Goddard, right?
Mhm.
You can talk about law of attraction, and yes, The Secret, superb book. I'm not knocking it at all. But the thing is, yeah, The Secret doesn't tell you how to get from one vibration state to another,
Mhm.
right? If you look at Jerry and Esther Hicks, for example, asking it is given, they always say, they give you, oh, well, how can you, be from feeling very, very depressed and down to getting on the vibration of what you're asking for?
Mhm.
Because law of attraction cannot not work. It just responds to vibration. And what I absolutely love about Neville Goddard is that he works, or he also says, yes, the law of attraction, yes, but also the law of assumption, by saying, well, I'm going to start behaving like what I've already, I want, and I want it, what I desire is already here.
Right.
And what he did say, and what his philosophy said, is that we're all divinely interconnected. And he said, it's the same story over and over again. Right. I mean, because he was quite religious. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know if he actually did, you actually know about Neville Goddard, but he was actually quite religious.
One I prepared
And
earlier. This handsome chap.
yeah. Oh,
Just to beat what the
fabulous.
secret is.
Yeah. But he even said that basically, well, the only Christ, the only Lord, the only God is basically the part of Jesus Christ in the end. We'll all know that we're all God. And that makes perfect
Ooh.
sense, because everything that we manifest comes from the source. And you
Yeah.
don't have to be religious. It all comes from source, whether you believe in Buddha, whether you believe in God, or whether you believe in like sort of a divine source, or the powers that be. So evidently, once you do tap into that source energy, because everything that we desire is we've already got it basically. And he was just more or less saying, that we can have exactly what we want, but we've got to start acting like we've already got our desire in our reality now. They
So we
don't
are
say
our own creators.
we are our own creators.
Mm.
Yes,
So we
indeed.
choose how we feel, like those things, like, everything comes from an idea, whether it's, who would ever imagine that we would be able to fly a massive jumbo jet in the sky, so big, but it can fly. The massive cruise liners that can go, so massive across the sea and don't sink. Well, occasionally do, but they're the big ones. So that all came from an idea from somebody. They thought, I know, there's this,
Exactly.
and then they created it. So anything is possible within reason. I mean, that, where you probably think there's no way that can happen, and look
Yeah,
now.
but remember this, Adele. They laughed at the Wright brothers when they said that man could fly, and yet, air travel is the most common form of travel nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
And they laughed at them, when they did the first plane and the attempts of getting it off the ground.
Mm.
They laughed at Alexander Bell when he invented the telephone. But
Yeah,
now, it's the most common thing that everybody
yeah.
uses. So at one time, like you
Incredible.
said, everything that we see, and even the chair that I'm sitting on, even the chair you're sitting on, and the rooms
Yeah,
that we are in, at one point was something in somebody's
yeah,
imagination.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah,
is a fact. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And this is what, you know, what Goddard's philosophy actually says is that we're all one. We're all divinely interconnected, you
Mm-hmm,
know.
mm-hmm.
So evidently we are all part of that divine source, and it's divine source and our everything that we can see in our imaginations. And that's why we say that everything that's make believe. And if you start believing in it, it becomes a reality. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the power of the mind is so strong. You know, even to how we feel when we wake up. Yes, okay, hormones and emotions can come into play, but you can change things by putting music on that can lift your vibration. Go and do a workout; it releases those endorphins. There's many things that we can do to change the way that we're feeling or acting or reacting. You know, there's there's so many different ways that we can do that to live a more positive life and to be on the right track.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know yourself, you're in all your bodybuilding, you know what to say when you're doing your bodybuilding, lifting weights and that, you know, right, I am going to be in the, you know, the top female bodybuilder. Why can't you make it a reality? I'm
Yeah.
just using this as an example. When I went to the gym,
Mm,
there's a guy there well into his 50s,
yeah.
right? And he was competing with guys half his age, and
Yeah.
he was winning the competitions, Adele.
Because he believed in himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I said to him, I said, you're going to win these contests. And he didn't believe me, but
Mm,
yet he did. And I think there was one he went to in Italy, I think it was, and he became second. But I mean, this is a guy who was well into his 50s and he
mm,
was competing with guys like early 20s,
brilliant.
you
Yeah.
know. So it just shows you, if you believe in it, you know,
Yeah.
why not? You know,
But
age is after all just a number.
what about when people say, yeah, but I do believe and I have believed, but it just hasn't happened yet. I haven't met the love of my life. I haven't got the perfect home. I haven't got that job that I really wanted. I believe all the time, but it's just not happening for me. Is there such a thing as it's just not the right time and these things will come when they're
Well,
ready?
yeah, it can be that, but but at the same time, everything is all orchestrated within the divine. So the thing is, it's like if you like order something out of a catalog, you don't keep ringing up and, you know, I'm just saying this as an example. I know you get things online now. If you order from an online catalog, you don't keep like emailing them, or you keep ringing them up and saying, right, okay, when's this going to get delivered? You just know that it's going to happen and it will come in
Mm.
its own time. You
And
know, they
of
might
course,
say, oh well, 2 to 3 days, but
yeah.
you're going to get it.
And how
So
many
it's
times have we said, you know, before, like, I really want it. And then we look further down the line a few months ago, oh, thank God that didn't happen. Oh, I'm glad I didn't take that opportunity because something else came better for me. So
exactly.
it might feel like we really want it now and we deserve it now. But actually, you know, maybe there's something better around the corner, or maybe you're not actually right in the right place right now for that situation or that opportunity. And when you look back, you'll see why. But right now we can't because we want it so much.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's about learning to let go of the attachment to it as well.
Yeah.
You know, because the more a lot of people do tend to get attached to outcomes.
Yeah.
But the more the trick is to release the attachment to the outcome.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, you know, that old saying, let go and let God, because, you know, it doesn't matter how much we want something, right? It always comes in its own time if it's
Mm,
divinely orchestrated, you know, because in the scheme of things, we work on time, Adele, but spirit don't.
yeah.
And the thing is, that's what people don't understand,
Yeah.
because in the world of spirit, and where, you know, the vibration of what we're asking for, even though we have got it in another, you know, a dimension, you know, where they don't work on time, because time is man-made. So things that I've actually asked for 10 years ago, right, are actually only just starting to come into me reality now. So
Mm-hmm.
once you do let go of the outcome and worry and let go of the how, because it's not our job to worry how, and
Yeah.
just to know that it will happen if and when it's meant to, and if not, then spirit, or, you know, divine, or, you know, the powers that be, or whatever you know you do believe in, is going to send something better our way. You
Yeah.
know, it might mean that it's just not meant, that particular thing is not actually meant for us, but we're meant to do something better, like what you've just said, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just being open to it. And it is a case.
Was Neville Goddard, was he psychic, or was he just like a motivational talker? Was he a philosopher? You know, what was his background?
Well, to be honest, he was actually from Barbados, right? And what actually happened is he met a guy called Abdullah. So evidently he was born into an English family in Barbados, I do believe, in 1905. And what it is, he was what happened was he went to, I think it was the States when he was about 17. And he actually he came from like a performing arts background. He went into drama and he went into dancing. And what happened was he realized that metaphysics was like his true calling. So he went from like performing arts to like sort of spirituality, which is very, very common for people who are in the creative industries, because if you look at so many musicians and actors who are very, very into the metaphysical side of stuff. And what happened was he met an Ethiopian rabbi called Abdullah. And this Abdullah, he was really absorbed in esoteric Christianity. And evidently he was, I feel like he was under like sort of guidance under this guy Abdullah. And evidently he had like a very, very huge influence on Neville. And what Neville did is he managed to like sort of ingest the spiritual understandings from this very highly evolved guy. Evidently Abdullah taught him about like the law of attraction, but he also taught him about the law of consumption, which is basically the creative power in belief and imagination, which is what became Neville's philosophy. So Neville was saying, yeah, it's all very good about the law of attraction, but what about the law of assumption, which means that you've got to start acting like what you desire is already here in your reality. But he had such a dedication to this guy Abdullah, right? So evidently he started traveling around and he really, really got into the metaphysical studies, you know. And that what happened after that is that he started traveling around and he started like doing lectures in New York, in Los Angeles. He was actually quite ahead. I mean, I know the law of attraction the last 10 to 20, 15 years has really taken off. But if you look back, he was like one of the he was one of the primarily one of the few people to be ahead of his time. Not just him, but also Florence Scovel's Finn as well, and she actually wrote about the game of life and how to play it, you know. So they were both very, very ahead of their time and teaching about the law of attraction. But what they've also talked about was like law of assumption. And what Neville actually said was the world is actually a mirror, and the mirror that reflects our beliefs and our fears and our divine essence. So basically, by altering our perceptions and assumptions, we not only transform the individual lives, but contribute to the collective consciousness and evolution of humanity. So he was quite ahead of his time, Adele, right? You know, so it's like, yeah, you've got the secret, yeah, great, you know, asking it is given, yeah. That also tells us how to get onto that vibrational state of what we're asking for. So in all honesty, the secret, yeah, even though its teachings are very, very simple, right, you know, it's actually only a half truth, because it doesn't tell us, well, when we're having a rubbish day and, you know, the dogs chewed our carpet and we've manifested it, we want to manifest a brand new car, right? And we, you know, we're sitting there and life's just really getting to us because, you know, stuff does happen, you know. How we can get to that feeling of asking what we want, because if we are really down in the dumps and everything's going against us and things do happen, because life does happen, how we can get from one state to another to get onto the vibration of what we're asking for. But that is, if you go back to Neville's teachings, he does talk a
He
lot
was the
about
man.
the law of assumption. Yeah.
He was the man. I mean, how important is it for you then? So when people are coming through and having psychic readings and they want those predictions for the future, how important is it for actually, yes, it's nice to get those predictions, but for that person to be more aware of what they need to personally work on, be more aware of with their own personal development? How important is that? Or are you quite happy just go, yeah, here's your predictions, off you go?
Well, the thing is, it's all too well, if we can always say, well, by September of 2025,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to manifest like sort of Vauxhall, whatever, but it's got to be believable,
Mm-hmm.
right, to the person. It's like if I said to you, well, do you know what? You're going to meet a guy and he's going to be, say, a billionaire, right? I'm not saying that you couldn't meet somebody who was a billionaire. If you're mixing in those circles, it's got to be believable to that person,
Yeah.
right? So if I said, for example, Joe Bloggs is ringing up, for a read, and he wants to know when he's going to meet the girl of his dreams. And if I turn around and said, well, actually, you're going to go to Monte Carlo and you're going to meet a multimillionairess, and, Joe Bloggs is just an electrician from Essex. Is he going to actually believe that? Who knows? But it's got to be believable
Mm-hmm.
to the person.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen for him, but the thing is, it's got to be believable to that person. And the thing is, a lot of people believe what they want to believe as well. I'm not saying that it can't happen for them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's got to be what they accept, because we're all co-creators of our own reality,
So if I
So
believe that my husband's going to win the Euro Millions, would that happen?
who knows, Adele? Who knows? I mean, you could be putting on your ticket, but again, it's all about getting onto that vibration of winning the lottery, because
Yeah, I can get on
anything
that
is
vibration.
possible. I'm not, I'm just using this as an example, but a very good friend of mine, her auntie has actually won the lottery 5 times.
Wow.
And
I
no,
mean,
I'm not. And no, I'm not.
that's just
I'm not
greedy.
like, yeah, because she's on that vibration. I'm not saying she's won millions on it. She has won quite a bit on
Actually,
it, though.
you know what, Freddie, just to interrupt you, we did say, because it was a massive Euro Millions, sorry to go down the sort of the betting side, but we all do it now and then. But actually, not now and then. I haven't done it for donkey's years, but the Euro Millions was low. So me and my husband thought, let's do it. We had that urge to do it. And he did win. He won £3.50.
I've won the lottery 3 times. I've won the lottery 3 times. I've won £1.50 and bought another
But
ticket,
he's
but I've
more
still
specific
won.
how much we want, because we did
Yeah,
win.
I mean,
It's a
it would
small
be
win.
nice to think that, it would be nice to think that, yes, I could win a huge amount of money. And I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's got to be believable to that person as well. So evidently that lady who's won the lottery 5 times, she's obviously on the vibration of winning the lottery. And one thing I've learned about this sort of like, this work that I do, and also, evidently reading about Neville and his teachings, is that nothing is impossible. It's got to be, miracles manifest every day. So who knows, Adele? Who knows?
Oh,
But,
God, yeah.
Evidently what he did teach as well is that the universe is literally just full of infinite potential.
Yeah.
And we are just part, if we know that we are intrinsically part of that creation, and that God or source is part of that, then, we are a child of source, and source always does cater for our needs. And that is what you try to put across, is that we are all divinely interconnected, and everybody we're literally, abundance is our birthright. We're not meant to come into this life to struggle and to be poor. I know a lot of people do, but evidently that might just be part of a lesson that they've got to learn on a soul level. But infinitely, as human beings, we are all divinely connected, and abundance is our birthright.
Yeah.
And
When you said you were going to be talking about Neville today, I thought I could have a look at some of the quotes. And one of the quotes that I've got here that I'll share that says, "Don't get in the habit of judging and criticizing, seeing only unlovely things. You have a life, live it nobly. It is so much easier to be noble, generous, loving, and kind than to be judgmental. If others want to do so, let them." And it is, isn't it, that there's so many people that can very much bring you down or zap your energy or be really moaning and really like, oh God, I got to see that person again today. But when you're around those people that lift your vibration, that are supportive, that encourage you, they go, yeah, do it. What's the worst going to happen? It doesn't work. Don't worry about it. You go back out there and you try something new. And those are the people you want to be around, because there's such a difference when you are around those supportive people than with the people that really zap you and drain those energies.
absolutely. And I'm not like mentioning any names, but there's so many people out there who are walking around, and I personally now, I can't stand being around anybody that's really negative, you know. I mean, the thing is, the more that you are around people who are positive, that positive people raise our spirits, you know, that those are
Yeah.
the type of people that you want to be around. But it's like, for example, if you're born like to alcoholic parents, and you'll find this, then 9 times out of 10, you know, that person who's born to alcoholic parents is going to grow up to be an alcoholic themselves. But if you're born to somebody who was like parents who are positive and loving and caring, then evidently the chances of you being like sort of a loving and caring person is also going to be very, very high. So yes,
But that
you know,
doesn't
there
mean that
is
if you had a challenging life that you can't break that habit, because there's so many people that have gone through so much loss, so much, addiction, or as you mentioned, haven't had parents around, but they've really made a go of it and they've changed it and they've become something because of that, again, believing in themselves, that
exactly.
positivity, that wanting to do better. So again, it's how you choose to react from that and
And
how
yeah,
you
and
decide
also
to, not repeat
it's
yourself.
yeah, absolutely. And I've known people who have come from had absolutely horrendous lives and had horrendous problems. And you know what? They're the most happiest, positive people that I've been around, because you know what? It's all about looking at the glass. Is it half empty or is it half full? You
Yeah.
know what, Adele? I'm going to tell you now, you know, at one time I was just grateful to even just be on this earth and to just be alive. The most simple thing that we all take for granted, right? And you know what? Tomorrow's never promised, and just be
Yeah,
grateful to be on this earth another day,
definitely.
because somebody out there, as we are talking now, is taking their last breath.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is so sad. And I'm not sitting here on my pedestal saying, oh, it's a great life, everything's really positive, put a smile on, because of course we all go through challenges. We've all been probably
But
at,
it's outlook,
the
isn't it?
darkest times in our life, and people have been depressed. But again, as I mentioned, it's like you can't stay in that situation forever, and otherwise God knows what's going to happen. So there has to be a turning point, whether it's a spiritual awakening, whether it's somebody holding your hand and getting you through it, or whether it's just something within inside you goes, I don't want my life to be like this anymore. Something needs
Yeah,
to change.
exactly. But it's all about outlook as well.
Mm.
And the thing is, it's a case of this. This has also been a fact. If you get two people who are like, I'm just using this, say, like, sort of being diagnosed with cancer,
Mm.
right? The first person who is always, oh, isn't this rubbish, playing victim all the time? Isn't this awful? And I'm going to die, blah, 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 and then you've got the other person who's been diagnosed with the same condition, and that person is surrounded by positivity,
Yeah, yeah,
watches like sort of comedies all the time, because laughter is the best medicine.
yeah,
Out of the two people, it's the one who's the positive one that's going to last longer,
yeah,
and that is a fact. So, and also there is an old saying, evidently as you found this out, that your vibe does attract your tribe. So the thing
mm,
is, if you're a happy go lucky person,
yeah,
and you look on you're positive all the time, and well, not that you can be positive absolutely all the time, but because life does happen.
yeah,
But but if you're positive 95% of the time,
mm-hmm.
and you're surrounded by a supportive family, a
Yeah.
loving husband, then you know something, you've got to attract people who are on the same vibration. But if you're
Absolutely.
somebody that's miserable all the time and, you know, always in this awful and always complaining about, you know, what niggles you've got, then you're just going to attract
Yeah.
more of the same, aren't you?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, what are you going to do to
yeah,
change it? Absolutely. If you're not prepared to help yourself, then it is very difficult. As you
yeah,
mentioned, people can be very depressed and very sad and going through a lot. But that person needs to make sure they are getting out and getting fresh air, or listening to some good music to lift their vibration, or seeking more medical help if that's what they need,
yeah,
or counselling.
absolutely.
But if you're just sat there and you're not doing anything about it, then nothing's going to change. And
Yeah.
you mentioned there about someone having cancer. There's a lady in my spin class who comes every week. She's the most inspirational lady. She's got stage 4 cancer, and she's there doing a 45-minute spin class. She's absolutely just it's overwhelming sometimes. I'm like, oh my, I try not to think about it too much, because she doesn't let it stop her from doing it. She's just literally going full steam ahead, enjoying life and doing everything she can to make her life long as it can go, and how long she can go for, and doing everything she can to be healthy. And I always find it remarkable when I see her. I just say, gosh, wow. you know
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, Adele, you know, the facts are we're all gonna leave this earth one day,
mm,
right? And something is gonna have to cause that to happen. So while you're here on this earth, enjoy it while you can, you know,
mm,
and good for her. You know,
yeah,
what about the lady that you speak to old people who, I'm too old to do this or I'm too old to do that nonsense. You know something, each day is a lesson and a gift to
yeah,
every single one of us. And we're
mm,
all getting older. I
yeah,
mean, what about the lady that's 100 and odd and goes to the yoga class every single morning and she drives
yeah.
herself down there? You
Yeah,
know,
and that lady on the horse, have you seen her? She travels across the country. She's in her 90s, and she's got her Shire horse, and she packs up and she makes like a charity ride that she does from one part of the country to the other. Incredible.
exactly. It's all in here. You know, you're as old as you think you are,
Yeah.
right? And the thing is, evidently, there could be some people out there in their 70s, you know, sitting thinking, oh, well, I'm too old to do this, you know. And the
Yeah.
thing is, you know, whether you can or whether you can't, either way, you're right, you know. So it's an old saying, but it's so true.
Yeah.
But yes, I've seen I don't believe that age should be a barrier to anything, because age, after all, is just a number and the
Mm,
soul is ageless. And the thing is, you know, the soul doesn't know time or
yeah.
space or anything. It just knows what is love and what is
Yeah.
presented.
And again, those positive people that we're talking about, they would have faced their own challenges in their life. They haven't probably had the perfect life. There's been ups and downs. So if people are listening or watching us today and go, yeah, but I'm not at that place right now. I am going through a divorce. I am going through a loss of job. I am maybe homeless. Life isn't good for me at the moment. So I am finding it very hard to see the positives right now. What could that
Mhm.
psychic reading offer that person?
Well, do you know what? It's a case of being open to it, and also being open to the fact that things can change just like that.
Hmm.
And you know, our thoughts and feelings do create our own reality. So the thing is, change your thoughts, change your feelings, and it'll change your life.
Mm,
But you know, there is a lot of people out there that don't do that, unfortunately, and they think that by having a psychic reading, and yeah, and evidently, yeah, I'm not saying that what is not being said to them at that moment in time is correct or whatever. But the thing is, we are all, again, I've got to go back to what Neville says, we are all co-creators of our own reality. So it
hmm.
doesn't matter how accurate the psychic is or whatever. It's a case of, it's very much down to us, because we are captains of our own ships.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your take on things that we can put into practice? Things like vision boards and visualization and meditations. How effective are they?
Visualization, yeah, brilliant. Vision boards, wonderful, right? Get out, get you, at least if you read, I've always said, if you really do want something, the trick is you've got to really want it on every level of your being, within your heart and your soul. Friend of mine always wanted to go to New York. I'm just using this as an example. and she wanted it with all her heart and soul, never had the money to go. And then all of a sudden, I think it was her kids just paid for her as a surprise to
Yeah.
go, you know, because they knew how much she really wanted to go. But at the same time, she still manifested that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
My best friend did it recently. She actually posted it on Facebook the other day, but she had a vision board of a Jeep and some holidays. And I came back from a holiday, and then I just saw this week going, my vision board has come true. I've got this Jeep that I've been visualizing for years. And then there's her getting into this Jeep that she's, received. And yeah, she's always a big advocate of doing the vision boards and them coming into fruition.
Absolutely. I mean, vision boards, absolutely fantastic. And the thing is, you've got to start acting like it's already here. So, for example, I'm just using this as an example, Adele. You want to go traveling, pack your case. You know, start putting it out to the universe. You want to go on, you know, for example, you want to book a holiday to Barbados, get your case packed. One guy I knew, you know, he used to go to the airport every single day with his packed case. Again, start acting like it's already
God, that's so funny. If I did that tonight, my husband might think I'm walking out on him.
No. You know, you want the job interview, right? I always say this to all of my clients. There's a job that you want, start writing that, you know, get a pretend letter off the computer from the company that you want, offering yourself the job, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like when I came to like sort of view this house that I'm living in, right? I came and I just walked straight in and I was like, yeah, this house is mine. And what I did is I went home and I just I started writing my name and my new address over and over and over again. So because the universe doesn't know whether what we have manifested or what we've got is here. It just knows that the vibration of it and know that we want it. You know, so for example, if somebody says, well, I don't want to be fat, right? What you're saying to the universe, all the universe is hearing is fat. So that's exactly what you're going to get, you know? So they don't hear, they don't want. Okay. So I always say to clients, right, when they say, well, I don't want to be skinny, right? Or I don't like, so what is it that you do want? See the positive that. So I don't want to be skinned. So turn that around to say, well, I am an abundant being who always lives in abundance, you know? So, you know, you can't change it around. So just by like sort of focusing on what you actually want and desire and feeling it, you can bring that into your own reality when it is the right time. Because remember, there is no time. It's all about divine timing, and that can be any time because we work on time. Oh yes, we've got to go to the dentist at 10:30 and things like that. We've got to start work at 9 o'clock in the morning. But the universe doesn't hear that.
Yeah.
And this is what you try to explain to people, because everything is divinely orchestrated by source. And that is exactly what Neville spoke about in his teachings.
Okay, nice. Well, again, you know, turning those imaginations, the ideas, the creations into reality, that positive mindset, those visualizations, you know, vision boards, whatever it might be. If you're watching right now, put something into practice, do something about it. You know, you are your own creator in your own, you know, your own journey. So, you know, get yourself out there and do some positive things to change things into get these coming into fruition. There's going to be those people that are watching this go, yes, great, this is brilliant. And then there's going to be other people go, what a load of old rubbish.
But you know what? Right? It's those people that are saying to the universe, what a load of old rubbish. Guess what? It is going to be a load of old rubbish because it's not going to work for them, because that's what they're putting out. You know, so be careful what you say. And if there's an old saying, be careful what you wish for, because it might just come true. So do you know what? It's like, you know, even The Secret says, you know, oh, well, you know, you're doing all this stuff and you're saying to the universe, oh, do you know what? This stuff really doesn't work. And it's just a right load of old pony, right? Guess what? That's exactly what you're manifesting. And that's what you're putting out to the universe. And that's going to be your reality. So you can change it.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? We're coming towards the end of the podcast and obviously broadcasting on other social media platforms. But if people do have any feedback, any stories they want to share, you can also message our show. You've got the QR code at that side. So you can download the app and you can get a hold of us. You can contact the show, leave feedback, leave reviews on the podcast, on YouTube, share any sort of visualizations that come true or, any feedback like that. We'd love to hear your stories if you've been listening to the show today. Of course, we'll be catching up with Claire over the next few weeks and months ahead. So you're going to get to see her a lot more here on the screen and on YouTube, which is very exciting. And we've got some other psychic guests coming up talking about all different areas of the psychic world. But Claire, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Is there any final words from you to people at home?
Just, keep co-creating. You manifest as if your reality, guys, right? So, if there's something that you want, start acting like it's already here.
Make those dreams come true.
Absolutely. And you can't make those dreams come true because do you know what? I talk to people all the time who have said, do you know what? I've done it. And you know what? It's just such a lovely feeling to be able to listen to somebody who said, do you know what? I wanted that house. I wanted to have this life abroad. And you told me that you saw me moving abroad. And guess what? It's happened. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway, guys.
Get packing those suitcases.
Susan Jeffries said it many years ago and she was so right, but it's always nice to be challenged and push ourselves out of our comfort zones because
Definitely.
let's face it, we do get into a comfort zone, don't we? And sometimes we just don't like to be pushed out of that. But sometimes we just need that nudge to do so.
Today's struggles are tomorrow's strengths. I'll leave it there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure having you on board today.
And you, Adele, as always.
Thank you very much. If people want to go through and have a reading with Claire on Ask the Answer, her PIN number is 500699. Thank you, Claire.
Bye.